Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at using trigonometry to find an unknown side. We'll be looking at right-angled triangles. So let's draw one. Sorry about my poor drawings. So we have a right angle and we'll label another angle theta. So remember, the side that's facing the right angle is always the longest side of the right angled triangle, and we call that the hypotenuse, H for hypotenuse. We need to label the other two sides. So remember, the one facing the angle is called the opposite, and the one next to it, that's not the hypotenuse, is called the adjacent. It's important that we label our sides correctly. Now note, the hypotenuse always stays as the side facing the right angle, but the opposite and adjacent switch if you change the reference angle. So if I draw another right angled triangle, let's say I'm now going to talk about this angle here, I'll label alpha. So this side here would still be the hypotenuse, but now this side would be opposite because it's facing the angle, like that. And this side here would be the adjacent because it's next to it. So make sure you get your labeling the right way around. So remember, there are three ratios that we use. So if I fix this angle or this angle, let's say I told you that this angle was like 30 degrees, then the ratio of the sides is fixed. And we can use that ratio to find unknown sides. So the three ratios you need: sine of the angle, the sine ratio is opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine ratio, or cos, is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then the last one is the tangent ratio, and that is opposite over adjacent. So the way a lot of people remember this is the acronym SOHCAHTOA. Tells you which one to use when. So the S means sine, O opposite, hypotenuse. So you use sine when the question is involving the opposite and the hypotenuse, cos when it's involving adjacent and hypotenuse, and tan when it's involving opposite and adjacent. The one listed first goes on top. So sine is opposite first, so it's opposite on top of the fraction. Hypotenuse is second, so it's on the bottom. So we really need to know these three ratios if we're going to find sides. So we'll now look at actually finding an unknown side. Please pause and copy down if you need this. So let's look at this triangle here. So I've told you one angle is 30 degrees. Obviously, that means that the other angle would be 60 degrees because the angles inside a triangle add to 180. So if I tell you that the angle that's marked in black is 30 degrees, the ratio of this side to this side is fixed. I can't actually figure out the length of any sides unless I know one of the sides in the triangle. So just knowing an angle is not enough to find an unknown side. To use trigonometry, I need an angle and a side. So let's say I know this side here is 12 centimeters. So now I can find the unknown sides in this triangle. So let's say I want to find this side here. So what do? The first step, I need to figure out which ratio I'm going to use. So I know the hypotenuse, and I want to figure out the side that's opposite this 30-degree angle. So if I'm using this black angle, I have the opposite and the hypotenuse. Therefore, I use sine. That's the SOH in SOHCAHTOA. So I have sine of the angle equals, now remember, SOHCAHTOA is S-O-H, so O, opposite, goes on top, and hypotenuse goes on the bottom. So let's now look at this triangle down the bottom. Again, I have an angle and the length of a side, so I can use trigonometry to find another side. In this case, I want to find x. So x is adjacent the 78-degree angle, and 80 is opposite the 70-degree angle. So when I have opposite and adjacent, I use tan. That's the TOA in SOHCAHTOA. So I set up my equation. Tan of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Because it's TOA, O comes first. That means O goes on top. Now, I haven't solved either of these equations. I wanted to do them at once so I can show you. If the thing you want to find is on top, then you times. So in the top one, x would be 12 times sine 30. Make sure your calculator's in degrees mode and you should get 6 exactly. So x would be 6 centimeters in the top one. But if the thing you want to find is on the bottom, you don't times, you divide. So x would not be 80 times tan 78. X would be 80 divided by tan 78. And that gives you an answer of about 17. In this case, it would be millimeters. Now, I don't expect anyone to be able to do sine, cos, or tan calculations in their head, but you should be able to have some idea of what the answer should be. So here, we knew the hypotenuse was 10. So the answer we get, because this x is one of the shorter sides, should be less than 12. So if I got something more than 12, I know I'd done something wrong. Here in this diagram, we expect that the answer would be quite a bit less than 80, which is what we got. If I got a number, way more than 80, I probably had done something wrong. If I got here a number more than 12, I'd done something wrong. And usually the thing that people do wrong is times and divide at the wrong spot. They get an equation like this and divide, or an equation like this and times. So make sure you understand, if the thing you want to find is on top, you times. If the thing you want to find is on the bottom, you divide. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.